Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen. This is the Iblis Manifestations podcast. This channel features lengthy off-limits conversations with various different artists and entrepreneurs, predominantly from the underground metal scene. We take deep dives into the topics of life, music, spirituality, and take insight from a variety of thought-provoking perspectives from personalities who you don't often hear from in a mainstream settings. I am your host, Shayan, and I was originally born and raised in Iran and currently reside in the UK. I am the frontman and founding member of the black death metal band TRIVAX, who have been active since 2009. The band originally started in the Islamic Republic of Iran, where such type of music is banned as well as a punishable offense. You can check the band's pages for any updates on tour dates as well as new music. I am also a personal trainer and an online fitness coach who specializes in people achieving the best versions of themselves physically and mentally. Having been someone who was once extremely out of shape and overweight, I find it to be my duty to be able to pass on the information and knowledge which I've gained to help others achieve the same transformation. The Iblis Manifestations podcast also features a variety of solo episodes where I discuss personal experiences and anecdotes in a very candid fashion, covering everything from mental health, spirituality, philosophy, and even paranormal experiences. This is the Iblis Manifestations podcast. To support it, be sure to subscribe to the channel and visit the link in the descriptions.
It's great talking to you, Shayan, really. And best of luck to your endeavors with this podcast. I think it's a great initiative.
You're my favorite person to talk to for interviews and stuff. So I love what you're espousing out here. I love the knowledge and the perspectives that you're curating through this, and I'm just so honored to be a part of it. Thank you.
As I told you, it was one of the most interesting interviews I've ever had, because we talk a lot more things than just music, and I really appreciated that.
I respect you deeply, and it's an honor to be here.
And friends, remember as always, better to die on your feet than to live on your knees. Enjoy the podcast. All right, Alex, my friend, welcome to Iblis Manifestations, man. How are you doing?
I'm doing really well. Can't complain. The sun's shining and it's been a pretty nice day, even though I've spent most of it inside, smelling resin and dust.
Yeah, in a shed, I presume, huh?
Yeah, in a shed at the bottom of my mum's garden. Very glamorous.
Yeah, that's it. Well, listen, man, obviously, I think that pretty much most people who follow what I'm doing regularly have already seen the piece that that we sort of collaborated together on. I mean, I can't really take much credit for it, other than the fact that I am the owner and the player of the guitar. But in fact, I'm gonna bring it to the video so anyone who's watching this at home, they get to see. This is my should we call it the self-proclaimed signature, the violence?
I think you can call it your signature.
There we go, and it's even got the middle part of the TRIVAX logo on it. Man, honestly, this thing is a fucking monster. I mean, the fact that it's a custom handmade guitar and the only one of its kind, I should add, which is befitting because I am also the same.
So
the only one so far, yes.
So far.
There you go. That's what I'm talking about. I think that it's just a fucking workhorse, man. You did such a great job with this, and this has already made it to the debuted Weird Stuff album, and it's going to be making its way to the next TRIVAX album shortly, in fact. And I've already played quite a few live shows with it. You only gave it to me like a couple of months ago, but I immediately took it to Berlin and then went on tour with Diocletian with it afterwards. So and it held up to the punishment, which for people who've seen TRIVAX live, they know I'm not exaggerating when I call it punishment, because we punish ourselves and we punish our instruments and we punish the crowd equally. So yeah, man, I mean, just what a fucking fantastic job. So that's where I wanted to start this conversation, by just saying thank you. I absolutely love this thing, and it's a fucking beast.
Thank you for the opportunity to build it for you, man, because like, you know, every guitarist needs a sharp blade, and hopefully you've got one now, and something that, you know, is represents you, rather than something that's, you know, come off a shelf that lots of other people are playing the same thing.
Well, absolutely. No, I feel very well represented by it, especially with the fact that it's actually got my name engraved on the back of it in Farsi writing, which, by the way, that was not my idea. I'm not that vain of a fucking person, you know, but that was your idea, but I still like it. It's pretty cool, man.
Oh, it's, you know, better than like when people decide to get like kanji tattoos of their names on themselves, isn't it? And they get like something that doesn't even say their name.
That's it, yeah. Or if they get like their faces, their kids' faces tattooed on them. I remember there was this guy, you know, he had his kids' faces tattooed all over his belly, and it looked fucking terrible, you know. And he was supposedly a tattoo artist, and it's like, you know, those kids are gonna grow up and they're not gonna always look like that. But I didn't break it to him, you know. I was feeling particularly kind on that date. But coming back to it, I mean, how did you even end up making guitars? What even made you think, oh yeah, you know what, I could have a go at making my own stuff here at home?
By chance, I during the last recession, the big recession in 2008, I just...
Also, sorry to interrupt you. Are you in a position to maybe just add a little bit more light to your video on your end?
There we go.
There we go. That's much better, man. There you go.
Yeah, so originally I started off as a graphic designer. So I started uni in 2008 because basically I just wanted to draw metal logos.
Mm-hmm.
Was my main ambition, and not to have a job for 3 years, like a lot of like young British people. Recession happened. I came out of uni, and there were no jobs. So I just ended up labouring. And before I knew it, I actually got for the first time in my life, actually doing hard work and physical activity. And trained as a carpenter over the next few years. And, I've been playing guitar since I was 13. Mm-hmm. And one day it crossed my mind that I could take the tools and the skills I picked up doing carpentry and the years of playing guitar and like put 2 and 2 together and make 6. And I started building from a pigsty that I converted in the house I was renting, and through various iterations of sheds, I found myself in a position with a sort of semi-decent workshop, and this year have gone full time with it. So I've done it as a hobby predominantly, and then a hobby that paid. And now I'm in the daunting position of trying to pay my mortgage and feed the kids with it. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it's going to be an interesting trip, but like I'd never forgive myself if I didn't do it.
Right, okay. Well, that last part is, of course, extremely relatable. I think, what's so cool about it is that obviously I've been a guitarist for, God, how many years have I been playing guitar for? I think something like maybe 15 years. Because I'm actually not that old, believe it or not. You know this, obviously. But 15 years I've been playing guitar. So obviously in that time, I've been through lots of different instruments, different brands. I've had BC Rich guitars, I've had Ibanez, I've played through lots of Jacksons and, ESPs. Of course, I've got the LTD Eclipse, which everyone's probably seen me play with that one, and that's a workhorse, obviously. But I would dare say that the guitar that you've built for me here, the quality of that is, I would say, just as good, if in some sense perhaps maybe even better than, let's say, like a factory built ESP or LTD guitar that you can, like you said, just buy off the shelf, and I'm not just trying to make like a sales pitch or sound biased here. This is just generally my experience of it. Even the other two models that we should probably explain to people, because before we decided to collaborate on the violins, you did actually bring a couple of your other models to my place, and then I got to. Hello? Yeah, so just before we actually worked on the violins, you did bring a couple of other models to my place, and then we were and then I actually got to play those. So I already had some kind of an idea before we actually started working together as to what your guitars felt like. I mean, how do you even go about doing such a task? I mean, do you envision this? Because there's a lot of creativity involved as well. Do you kind of envision it before you make it? Do you kind of just see where it goes as you're making it? How do you even get all the dimensions and everything as you go about making a guitar like that?
How do you craft a song? Do you have like a process, or do you have like a set idea to start with, and then it ends up? I think it's a question of like you have to bring all sorts of like methodologies together with it. Partially what you want and your sort of artistic muse dictates, and also being able to take what people's music, I think, like if you're making an instrument, it's like a personal statement for an individual. You need to sort of understand that individual, or at least try your best to understand that individual. So like in your case, like I discovered you through your podcast, and obviously best podcast out there, but
thank you.
Well, yeah, obviously. And yeah, it's a weird dynamic, because
yeah, I'm holding a gun at you from the side of outside the screen where no one can see it right now.
Just wipe the sweat off my face. Yeah,
yeah.
It's a peculiar thing, because like I discovered podcasts when my best mate who worked with me sort of we parted ways, like work-wise, because he went out on his own. So instead of going insane, like talking to myself and being on my own all day at work, I stopped listening to Judas Priest on repeat on my phone, and I got like a Bluetooth speaker, and I thought, I'll start listening to podcasts. 10 years later than everyone else, and just found like a various podcasts, and then discovered yours, and you feel when you're listening to the same person that you get to know them, and it's a really weird dynamic. That I feel like I know you well, but obviously you don't really know me, and because of that, I sort of like listening to your podcast and watching videos of your band play on YouTube, being super inspired by your personal story, just thinking that man needs a proper weapon to play on, and that guitar is sort of my distillation of everything that I take from you. It's sort of like clean, it's quite classic looking, but it's also not like it's a weapon essentially.
Which, by the way, is, I think it goes to show how well you interpreted what we do, because I always looked at music as a when I'm creating art, I do it with love, but it's a war, it's like, it's the love of war that's what inspires me, it's that every time I'm creating a piece of music, it's like I'm going to war with it. In fact, it's what allows me to be I think, fairly civil in my day-to-day endeavors, even though I'm someone who's extremely passionate, and that's something that can go both ways, It can be both very productive, but also extremely destructive. I have that energy within me. But what allows me to, and perhaps a lot of other people who interact with this particular style of music, to be so much more, I suppose, tolerable in a day-to-day sense, or at least be able to tolerate the outside world, is the fact that that you kind of have this ongoing war and this battle, whether it's with yourself or the world, doesn't matter. It's like the war is not about the enemy, but rather the pursuit of that fierce sort of entanglement, which translates into creating music, and it translates into the anticipation of waiting to go on stage to deliver what you do, because when that happens, that's not a normal thing, that's not entertainment, that's a projection of the deepest form. And I think that when you're fighting wars, you of course need a weapon, so that makes this extremely appropriate, I think. So I think that your sort of interpretation of that, I would say, is actually 100% accurate. And you know what? I'm fairly pleased with my weapon, I gotta say.
Yeah, well, that's the all matters at the end of the day, because we're just lumps of matter spinning around on a rock in the void, and unless we fill our lives with stuff that has meaning that we make, then everything is ultimately pointless. So, you might as well do the things that you're passionate about. It's interesting you say, because there's a famous quote, you have to be, can't remember it completely, but clean in your personal life in order to be violent in your creative life. And, black metal is a good representation of that. Because, in a way, it's the last bastion of dangerous music, but like in my like in the metal realm, at least, it's the last bastion that I can see of like proper, like, dangerous, challenging music, and it's really important that that is facilitated, and it's like continuance, because I don't know, I think a lot of things are slowly being commodified and softened, having the corners rounded off it, made more acceptable, and it's shit, really. It doesn't make you excited. You don't get excited by living in a padded cell.
Yeah, for sure. I agree with that, And I think there's this idea that, just going back to the war analogy that I made, I mean, one of my favorite sayings of all time, and I forget who this quote actually belongs to. I'm sure someone in the comments is going to correct me, but it's that it's not about the pursuit of happiness, but the happiness of pursuit. And I think it goes in line with how things in our world and in our realm and time itself are not linear things as such. And I think that that's a very important thing to keep in mind, so it's like when it comes to art, it's a process of continuous pursuit of like a metamorphosis, almost, whereas like you're taking your day-to-day experiences and your thoughts and your emotions, and then just projecting them out in this really fucking violent and powerful fashion, and again, black metal is really the home of that. To me, it's not a musical genre, it's more like a way of being, and I think that it's this could go really deep here, but I think the way that I look at it is quite interesting, because I think that it's a subculture which is most wrongly represented, I think. For example, the fact that a lot of people either think of it for its political connotations, or the fact that a lot of people see it for its aesthetic connotations. I think that's kind of missing the point. I think that it's a process of alchemy at the core of it, which is what makes it quite special and very powerful. It's the fact that, You know, it's this process of magic. It's the fact that people who were losers to begin with, you know, people who weren't gonna amount to anything, you know, they end up creating something extremely powerful that touches the lives of many people, you know, and it's kind of that underdog story. Actually, I would dare say it's very appropriate to the whole aspect of Lucifer in a way. And this is merely an observation, you know. I'm not even committing to a certain pathway here, but it very much to me feels like, you know, it's that process of being, you know, and life isn't supposed to be this all happy or, you know, colors and rainbows thing, but it's not supposed to be all dark and miserable either. It's a combination. It's a fierce duality of both of those things. And I think that this style of music is a fantastic way of actually giving a home to those emotions. As I actually talked to Kyle from Vitriol about this on one of our episodes together, I think that it just makes it that much of a powerful thing. And yeah, in order to do that, you need the right tools for it. And then you need that right tool of expression. And I think it's so interesting how it interacts with the physical realm, you know, whether it's with the instruments, whether it's with just a vinyl LP that you put on a turntable and then you just, you know, you listen to that and you go through the artwork and the experience of it. It's a very interesting thing, which to me is very obviously something that belongs to other dimensions that then only translates into this one, you know?
Yeah, 100%. Like, I think you can attribute all these things to the human experience, because in a way, like, whether it's creating an instrument, or, you know, the joy you get from having a record, they're like tangible things, and you need that. It's an essential part of the human experience to like have things that are meaningful to you. And I don't know. Just, we seem to live in a world that's obsessed with disposable stuff, and you know, you see that everywhere. Whether it's our attitudes to like food, whether it's our attitudes to clothes, and it, you know, in a sense, it's the same thing with musical instruments. Like, you know, I don't want to labour the point about building guitars, but really, it's just like, because that's the thing I'm doing. There's so much that like irritates me in a way about like the idea of having something farmed off and built in bulk abroad, and then, you know, it's almost like, well, what's this year's presentation of like things that we can sell to try keep proliferating this? Like, how many guitars does an individual need? How many pairs of like trainers does an individual need? You don't need lots. You need a few things that are like perfect and unique to you. Like, you know, you don't, you know, like your own personal razor blade, you know. That is a bit of the ethos behind what I do, is that like everything is superly customized, because what's the point in not making something that's customized? Like, I don't subscribe to this like trying to like, you know, up production in a way to like hammer out more stuff and get more out there and make more profit, because the reality is that's not why I'm doing it. Because that doesn't make me excited. It doesn't make me excited to try and make money. Like, it's obviously a necessary thing to exist in this world, but like, if that's all you aim for with your life's work and your passions, then you're gonna die fucking miserable.
For sure. You know how many people on this fucking planet could do with hearing that?
Yeah, quite a few. Like, yeah, it's miserable, and especially living in, you know, you've probably come to realise this living in the UK for as long as you have now. It's painted as this. I don't even know how it is painted, how you recognise it from abroad. But like, as someone who comes from like a proper working class background, it feels like a bowl, like you see in a pet shop, and you see like mice for sale, and there's like a glass. They put them in like a glass fish tank, and they're running around trying to like scurry up the walls, trying to get out because they can see straight through. They can see all the things that they want, but they can't get to them because there's this glass wall in front of them. And it feels very much like that living in this country sometimes. So all you can do is accept the system we live in and try and make something that is beyond that, something that has more meaning.
Yeah, so what do you mean just specifically about that particular analogy? So what are those things that are beyond the glass that you think people are trying to get to? Is it monetary things, possessions? What is it?
I don't know. I think in this country, there's an element of, you know, like we got the elections tomorrow, and
oh yeah, it is tomorrow.
Yeah, and it's just like you know, this is quite a serious thing. And I think there's like the amount of people, like my friends and stuff, nobody's talking about it because nobody cares. Because I think everybody's resigned themselves to thinking that no matter what they vote for, nothing will change. Like the rich are getting richer and the poor are getting poorer, and it's complete folly, and it pushes people to pursuing paths that maybe aren't like maybe the best choice for themselves and their families.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I agree. I'm sure that there's someone listening out there, you know, any of the British listeners are, you know, I'm sure there's the odd person who's pulling their hair right now. We need to vote Labour. We need to vote Green. My God. You know, or they're like, we need to vote Reform and stop all the rubber dinghy rapid bros. But you know, there's lots of that for sure. I think that, and as you can see, by the way, Alex, I have very much culture to the way of things here. You know, I am an open-minded person, and as you can see, I'm not very dense. I have actually paid attention, and I think I have a very good grasp of British culture, as you can see.
Or the lack of it sometimes, as it feels.
Well, yeah, sure. I remember it was funny to me. I've said this before, but you know, it was crazy to me how when I first came here and I went to Birmingham, and to me, my perception of Birmingham is like, holy shit, Black Sabbath came from here, and then not only that, Judas Priest, and then Bolt Thrower. And Benediction, Napalm Death, all these bands, you know, that
no one knows, no one gives a shit. There's a Black Sabbath bridge, isn't there? How many people, you know, you get the occasional metalhead who goes through and takes a selfie with it, but by and large, it's just like I went there recently and I went over it and I purposely didn't take a selfie on it just because I didn't want to be that person. But like, it's just like,
I mean, Pantera just went there, so you know.
What, half of Pantera?
Well, okay, yeah, you can be technical if you want.
yeah. No, I get why. I think, but no, it's almost like a disgrace in a way that that there's no like reverence towards the great things that have been made in this country. You know, like you say Black Sabbath, you say, you know, all these great bands, Napalm Death, Benediction, even Bolt Thrower, possibly the greatest band of all time, you know.
In the realm of death metal, they are up there. I don't know if I would say greatest band of all time, you know, like, because there was once upon a time a thing called Morbid Angel, but, you know, just a matter of personal preference, but, you know.
All right. Greatest British band of all time.
In death metal, or do you mean like period?
Oh, I don't listen to music. I only listen to metal, so you know.
There you go.
There you go. Called the Beatles, apparently, but like I've never heard of
that's how fucking true you are. There you go. That's
mate,
that settles it.
I realised this when I was a teenager, and I listened to Iron Maiden. Like I hated music as a kid. I remember because my dad and my brother play guitar. I remember being a little boy and just constantly getting angry at them, drowning like my TV programs out because they were both. My brother would be playing piano to try and drown my dad out playing guitar, and vice versa. And we go on like trips in our old Volvo, and it would be like my dad would be playing U2 on the cassette player on the car, and I remember just being like, like 5, 6, 7, and wanting to tear my eyes out, even at that age, having to listen to U2, and then all the sort of Britpop bands that came out. And I pretty much felt like that until I listened to Iron Maiden on Top of the Pops when they brought the Wicker Man single.
Yeah.
Brave New World came out. And then suddenly it was like a light bulb came on. It's like, oh, I like this. I don't know why I like it, but there's something about it that I like. And then it's been like a slippery slope ever since. And I sort of say this sometimes. I don't really like music very much. I like metal. I like metal. And I can sort of distinguish between the two, because what you were saying earlier about about black metal, it's like it's more than just music. It's like it's a lifestyle. It's a compulsion. It's something that like it transcends all these things.
Yeah, well, absolutely. I do agree that. I think there's something very weirdly ancient about metal as well. We briefly touched upon this when I had Eric from Watain on the show, and and it's the idea that even though metal is this modern thing where you use electronics and equipment and wood and strings and all these different things to even just make it sound the way that it does, I think that it does invoke something that's actually very ancient and tribal in our psyche and in our DNA. I think it goes straight into the reptilian part of the mind, and it invokes things that are quite ancient and old in our DNA, and a sense of a power and war that we are not actually very often exposed to in modern society. I would probably say that the closest thing to it is probably football hooliganism in the 70s in Britain, particularly, or Ireland, you could say. I think that there's like, even though people are terrified of that thing and they hate it, I think there's power in it, and I like that power. I like that's the thing that's like, like it's a very difficult thing to pinpoint. But you feel it,
Yeah. Well, it's addictive, and it is like an intrinsic part of human nature. It's that, when you get someone come in your face, you're a teenager, and you get picked on for the way you look. Someone gets in your face, you get the fight or flight come over you. Well, that fight, you get that same feeling when you listen to like Summoning Redemption by Morbid Angel or something like that, and you hear that riff and you pull that face. It's like, does other music do that for other people? Like I've always wondered, like, because I find it sort of like there's other genres of music where I can sort of see like crossover, like being playing Grand Theft Auto and listening to the radio stations and listening to the gangster rap radio stations, and so I can sort of understand what
Radio Los Santos.
Yeah, and that sort, you get vibes, but then you get other genres of music, and sometimes I'm just like, why does anyone listen to this, and what do people actually get from it?
Yeah, that's an interesting one. I get that. I've started to try and be a little more open-minded about the aggressive part of it, because I've noticed that aggression, very weirdly enough, can I think one very interesting place you can judge this is by judging the audience of a band or an artist. And I think that is not exclusive to metal, actually. Obviously metal is kind of like the obvious one, but every now and then I see something that surprises me in a pleasant way, where I'm like, wow, shit, look at that crowd. They look pretty into it, and there's definitely a powerful energy there. Like, for example, I know this is like so out of the league of what we are talking about with black metal on a black metal podcast, but there's this one particular video that I find very impressive. It's Kendrick Lamar playing this gig, and it's an arena show for 2000. I think it's like 2017. And I don't know many of his songs. I've just heard like the 2 or 3 tracks here and there, maybe. You know, most people who are listening to this are probably like, who the fuck is that? You know?
Yeah.
And maybe you're thinking that, but there's this one video where he is commanding the crowd at this like massive arena show, and it's really fucking cool, you know, where he's doing this fast verse and then he's pointing at one side of the crowd, and then that side of the crowd is singing it, and then within seconds he moves to the other side, and the crowd, the way he's commanding that crowd is very impressive, you know. And I know it's hip hop and maybe the lyrics are very vain or whatever, but like I said, I'm attracted to that sense of power and that kind of aggression that moves things, that creates a rumble. And I could actually see that in his music. And there's also some other different Brazilian styles of music, almost like dance music, that can actually be very heavy and aggressive. It's almost like death metal, but it's not musically not like death metal at all. And there are a lot of very interesting places I think you can sort of find that heaviness and power. It's just that metal is the most free-flowing and the most accessible form of that aggression. But equally, the problem with it is that it's such a saturated place for so many people to come and pretend that aggression. Like, I think that's something that you can't fake. I think there's, you know, punk bands with 3 chords that sound heavier than a technical death metal band because they just have the right attitude and the right feel. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, 100%. Like, it does baffle me, this sort of like image I get in my head of someone standing on stage with their, like, you know, headless guitar, like up here, completely still, playing like whatever the fuck they're playing, and it's just like, why aren't you smashing anything up? It's like, what am I here for? You look like you're waiting for a bus.
Yeah.
And it's, I know what you mean.
Look like you're waiting for the bus. I like that.
You see top level musicians though, like and the way they command the audience. Like you, I know you're a big Depeche Mode fan, and like,
I am.
Like Dave Gahan, it's just like he has complete control over everything. You know, mainly all the middle-aged women in the audience listening to it. You know, it's a universal thing, but I guess it's just personal preference when it comes down to the music. But like, things are very different live to listening to them in the way that most people consume them. Because you think in the world we live in now, most of us consume our music probably through Spotify, or, you know, maybe even like, I don't know, the other streaming platforms and apps that are available. They don't get like a full experience, whereas like, I suppose those bands they're sort of designed in a way to be seen live. But like, I don't know, I think if you're a metal fan, you can, from good stuff that you're really into, you don't need that. But then when you do get it and you see amazing bands live, it's just like absolutely mind-blowing. You know, seeing, you know, for example, like seeing you guys play recently at the what was it, in Bristol?
In Bristol, yeah,
my front room. Yeah. It's just like the level of intensity that you can conjure 3 blokes in a tiny little room with like a handful of, you know, as many, well, I say a handful of people, the full room. It's just like, you can't put a price tag on that. You can't commodify and box it. It's like something that exists.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, that's like, I think for the record, we are talking about the Griffin in Bristol. I mean, I was shocked when I saw that we were actually playing there at first, you know, not just so much for us, but the fact that we were going to be playing there with Diocletian. And in all fairness, we also played there with Beyond Man, which is basically like one half of One Tail, One Head, and Mare as well, from Trondheim. Yeah, I was shocked at first, but honestly, it is a fucking treat to play there, you know, like, and the venues come a long way, you know. Rob, who does the sound there, he really knows his shit, and it's really surprising. Like, every time we get asked to go back there, I'm always like, oh, it's fucking small. But then you do the show, and then if you do a proper show, I think I dare I say that the show that we did, both I think us and Diocletian that night, was pretty fucking tuned in, because the violence that fucking broke out of it, it's like, oh, it's so nourishing to the soul, and you're right, you can't put a price tag on that, you can't, because you can't fake it. What was interesting is that I actually started a mosh pit during Diocletian's show, and then people realized, oh shit, it's the guy from the other band doing this, so there was like a funny kind of element, and then just going in there and just like fucking manhandling people, throwing them around, and then Diocletian started coming into the crowd, and then fucking like the whole thing was just so much chaos. I love it. Man, that's the kind of thing that makes me happy.
And you can't put a price on it, and it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how expensive, gig tickets get. We're still going to go to those shows, because like that's like lifeblood. If you don't have that, then I feel like I'm suffocating if I haven't been to a gig for a couple of months, which I don't live in a city. I live out in the sticks a bit. It's a pain in the arse when you got to travel, you got to park up, you got to pay diesel, you got to pay ULEZ, all these things. So the ticket ends up being the cheapest part of the evening.
That's true. Yeah.
You end up, every gig ends up costing you £100. It's like that's quite a substantial investment in your happiness. So you might as well pursue the things that actually make you really happy and feel alive.
This is very true. This is very, very true. And just logistically speaking, you're so right about that, because I'm at a very privileged and honestly in a position where I'm super honored that most shows that I go to, I would probably say like 90 odd shows that I go to, unless it's like an arena gig, I pretty much have guest lists everywhere, whether it's the bands or the promoters, I'm very blessed in that sense, and I'm happy and proud about that, considering that I didn't know a single person when I first moved to the UK, and it's a cool position to be in. But I've also noticed that with that considered, I am spending the most I've ever spent on attending shows ever in my life. And I think that probably that says a lot.
But you think even in the small scale, like I live in a town of about 10,000 people. Like my town centre has nothing in. Like it's mainly charity shops and takeaways. But if I want to park, they can still afford parking wardens. But if I want to park, I've got to pay 50p to park, and it's just like the machine doesn't take card. It's like, so I fucking get my little purse out. It's like nobody has any cash on them anymore. So it's just like, well, I'll drive to the nearest city then, rather than go through the effort of trying to raid like the kids' piggy banks for 50p and go uptown and pay for parking. I'll just drive 10 miles that way and go somewhere where I can like park easily. But
this was, I think we just sat through the most British segment of Iblis Manifestations so far in the last 30 seconds, and I'm all for it. I think it is. It was raining down here, but I fucking love it, man. That's hilarious.
When doesn't it rain in Wales?
I don't know, when the sheep are asleep. I don't know.
I doubt you've seen a sunny day out of here.
Yeah. See, I don't know. You guys have corrupted me over here in Britain. I should have trusted my gut instinct. You've all turned me rotten. You have.
Well, you're welcome.
Yeah. I feel welcome.
Speaking to the same conversation about how it feels like, our national institutions, like, Carcass, Napalm Death, these sort of bands, they're not appreciated and they're not celebrated in this country. And they're only even known by a few people. And, if they're on TV for some reason, it's to have the piss taken out of them. It's like where's the pride in, like, you know, the creativity that people put out? Because, like,
Yeah.
it's not something that can be easily, you know, adopting this like American ideal of like rampant capitalism. If you can't easily like make money out of that music, it's somehow worthless. And it's like all these things are like barriers in the way of people being able to fully express themselves. And it's the same as the parking, like in the ULEZ. It's like you're penalizing people coming into this place to actually put money into this place and make it a living, breathing thing. It's almost like it's a master plan to sort of like destroy businesses. It feels like destroy
Well,
creativity.
100%. First of all, I think that ULEZ is an absolute fucking scam. It does not save the environment. Fuck you if you even think that that's the solution. You know, like, not whilst countries like China and India even exist. Like, get the fuck out of here. This is a money-making scheme. Please stop falling for it, people. It's so stupid. And you know what? I would say that UK's, I mean, it's getting bad, but it's still not as bad as, let's say, Netherlands. Have you been to, like, Amsterdam anytime recently? They've completely fucked it up over there.
No, not for a long time.
Oh my god. Yeah, so that whole thing is like over there, like we went to do a show in Arnhem, Netherlands, not too long ago. I think it was like just around a year ago now. And well, actually, I'm very good with dates, so it was actually 10th of June last year. Ha, there you go. We went there, and my friend Armando, you know, he kindly came and picked us up, but he literally, because he drives and lives outside of Amsterdam, he wasn't even allowed to take his car to Amsterdam, like, center. That's how fucked up it is, you know. And then the costs are absolutely astronomical just for you to, like, drive in the city center there. It's not very good, man. You know, it's not very good at all. And
it doesn't exactly work to you know, come off the airplane, which is just pissed out how many tons of CO2, to then get on a bicycle with a little trailer on the back to tow your JMC 800 and 4x12 cab in it and your guitar to the gig. It's like the taxes are being put in the wrong place. The taxes are being put in a place to like stop people doing these things. It's nonsensical.
Well, it's because they're trying to stop people. You know, I made this video during the second run of lockdowns, I think, well, in fact, I recorded it originally on my birthday. In 2020 on the 15th of November. I recorded it on a morning when I was staying in bumfuck nowhere in Scarborough. I mean, the country was in lockdown, but I was just traveling around, and I stayed in this camper van on my own for a few days, which was awesome, by the way. I really enjoyed it. But I recorded this video, and people can go watch this. But basically, what I was saying was that you know, you have to protect the institutions that actually allow for this music to exist, aka grassroots venues, and that was something that obviously at the time the risk was very obvious because these fucking criminals and terrorists decide to shut everything down over nothing, or rather over a plan which was there all along, which we won't get into, but you know, they decide to shut everything.
Meanwhile, laughing behind everyone's backs.
Yeah. Like Matt Hancock's WhatsApp messages saying, "Oh yeah, let's make sure everyone is as scared as possible." And
well,
the people,
fair, if you look like Matt Hancock, you do everything you could to try and get above everyone else.
Yeah, exactly. Well, absolutely.
Definitely the loser of the biscuit game when he was at whatever private school he went to.
Yeah, well, there you go. And I think that what saddens me and what I felt so disappointed by is that the same people who hate those people were just like falling to everything that they said, like some kind of programmed slaves. It was very, very strange and bizarre. You know, all these people that made all these like hate memes about those kind of figures online for years, now all of a sudden we're listening to every single word of advice that those people were giving just because they thought it was...
People are so quick to, like, on one hand, be like so concerned about restricting people of doing things, you know, banging pots and pans to the NHS, you know, because people aren't saving lives, but then on the same hand, condemning people and say they should lose their lives for not being vaccinated, or not lose their lives for trying to go against the rules, these arbitrary rules that have been put in place. It's just...
And yeah, and those fundings, they weren't going to the NHS, they were going to the friends of the government who were acting on, supposedly on behalf of the NHS, with track and trace, which was a fucking failure that did nothing. And it was basically like almost like a money laundering scheme, you know, which is very obvious when you...
a nice expensive gold wallpaper in one of those buildings somewhere, that's for sure.
yeah, for sure. And yeah, it's just very disappointing to me, you know, all the people who for years always said that, oh, we're for the idea of freedom and everything. They just gave up on that and threw it out the window just because they got scared, you know. And it's like, if that's all it takes to scare you, then you weren't for freedom to begin with. And you know, going back to the message that I was making was exactly that, you know, and it's that you got to be able to protect these institutions with grassroots venues and stuff, and because if you don't have that, then you kind of lose your footing for this music to thrive, you know. And I wholeheartedly agree with what you're saying, that it's a shame that this art form is not celebrated more often, and it's not rewarded for, like you said, its creativity. But then again, I do also think that on the other hand, as someone who grew up as a black metal head in Iran, in the Islamic Republic of Iran of all places, I'm also, I gotta be honest, I'm fairly content with knowing the fact that what I'm a part of goes against the very fabric of society, and, you know, and being a part of a real extreme minority or a fringe that doesn't really fit in anywhere. I'm perfectly fine with that, but I do wish that people here celebrated what we have more. I wish that they valued it a bit more. And you know, it's interesting. I come from I always reflect back on like my own kind of work, you know, and I sometimes almost feel like I'm an ironic missionary, in the sense of I come from an Islamic country in pursuit of a particular style of music, in a country that actually gave birth to that music and is yet also being taken over by that Islamic ideology. And I am kind of like fighting the opposite battle, saying, hey, you know what, this culture that you got here, where you had Black Sabbath and Judas Priest and all these bands, this is what you should preserve. Now you see that other Islam thing, that's going to come and take over, so maybe at least you should be able to criticize it, you know. And it's a very unique position I find myself in, but you know, it seems to define a lot of what I do.
Yeah, well, you know, it's important. It seems like a bizarre mentality in this country, because, like, you know, if you're a Christian, say, like a lot of people call themselves Christian, but they're like fair weather Christians. They're only Christians if they get invited to a christening or to buy a Christmas tree and wrap up presents. All these things that aren't have anything to do with Christianity. You can mock and ridicule that religion in this country, and nobody bats an eyelid. It's almost like the idea, if someone burnt a church down in the name of Satan, nobody would give a fuck. But you did that to a mosque in this country, and you would be strung up for it, or at least people want you to be strung up. The type of people who use that sort of rhetoric, but also meanwhile don't want people to be oppressed or hurt, try and save everyone. It's this weird dichotomy where people are so quick to hate each other. I don't get it.
Well, you know, don't tempt me now. Yeah, no, I absolutely agree with you. It's a very weird thing. I think that's exactly what you're talking about. It's, you know, and I get it. It comes from a good-hearted place. You know, all the people who want there to be some kind of equality, although I think, that in itself is, there's equality of opportunity, which is fantastic. Everyone should have that, but equality of outcome is just not compatible with nature or the laws of the universe, and that's just the way it goes, unfortunately or fortunately. But I think that, sometimes those people who like to wear the capes forget that we live in a world where you live by currency and limited resources, and that everything, every action, every word, every belief, every action, every step that you take has a trade-off. And I think they sometimes forget that. They sometimes think that we can live in this kind of harmony without there being any trade-offs, which is just not true. That does not work with our universe, again, unfortunately or fortunately. And I think that it's really sad when you see that those people who are supposedly for freedom, for free speech, for there not being discrimination against people, they end up supporting essentially a cult which goes against all of those things quite vehemently. And it's like I don't know, I suppose maybe it's a little bit like the Queers for Palestine thing, but I don't know, maybe, and I'm sure that in itself, that's it's very fucked up, but I'm sure that at its core is a very good-hearted thing, like I'm not questioning that. I'm not just being an asshole. I actually I see that people are wanting to be compassionate. They're trying to do and say the right thing, but I guess a lot of our opinions are more so formed by just the information that we have and how we perceive that information. But you know what? There was something that I wanted to show you here, by the way. I know this is a completely off topic here, but there's something I wanted to show you. I thought you would think is quite cool. So since I'm kind of working on the new TRIVAX record, as we know, and as I've kind of given you some tasters for it, I fucked around and went and bought a different kind of instrument here. Have you ever seen one of these before?
Wow. Is that like a... Did we begin with a B, Bouzouki or something like that?
So this is an oud, right? Ooh. Pretty fucking cool, man.
If that's not the opening track to the album now, I'm going to be disappointed.
Well, I think Niall's going to steal it first, but yeah, I think so. But no, I think I'm going to, not the opening track, but I'll be using some parts like that, I think. We'll see. What do you reckon? Should I use more stuff like that?
Yeah, well, your Persian heritage is very important to you. It's like, why wouldn't you lean into that?
Well, there you go.
It's part of the thing. You take the Brazil out of Sepultura, and what are they? They're Slayer.
It's a very good point. Slayer. Yeah. I mean, it's true. Yeah, it's true. For sure. No, definitely. And it's good, to have stuff like that. I mean, it sounds so evil. This one is particularly cool because I'll see if I can show you. I mean, you can actually hear it from there, right? The mic is picking it up, yeah? So hopefully everyone at home is also getting the same treatment. What's cool about it is that highest string in particular seems to have like an extra layer of reverb to it, which the other strings don't. I don't know how the fuck that works, but it's like, you can listen to this. This has got no effects on it, but it sounds like it has reverb. Do you hear that reverb?
Yeah,
that's pretty fucking cool.
It's like it's causing some sort of harmonic resonance inside the body.
That's right. That's right. But then if you do it with like the lower one, like the... Yeah, it's kind of got like the, I don't know. It doesn't have the same kind of reverb to it, But yeah, it's just a beautiful thing, man. You know, it's got a fretless neck as well. Don't know if you can see from there.
Yeah.
It's a pretty fucking interesting instrument. So yeah, there's gonna be traces of this one and a Baglama on the next TRIVAX album for sure.
That's awesome. Like, you know, you gotta do what represents you, haven't you? Because if you know, it's quite limiting if you only build things with 3 set instruments. And I think a lot of the most interesting music within metal is very textural, and you know, takes influence from lots of different things and just, I don't know, makes it heavy as fuck.
Yeah, for sure, absolutely, man. And I think that's kind of what gives it value as well. You know, just as we kind of round this up, I want to like I know we've kind of like gone like full circle and done lots of things here, but I want to maybe perhaps quickly just go through the specs of the guitar with you as well, just so people can get like a closer look at that. Just because I think it'll be good to get maybe like a closer look at it and kind of get an idea of what it does. Let's see. So, I mean, do you want to go through it, and then I can just show it here if you want?
Yeah, we can do.
Yeah, you put all the time and the work into it, so I actually think it'd probably be better if you wanted to just describe through all the different parts of the guitar and on what it's got on it.
Yeah, well, the vibe I went for was something that you know, is quite classical yet quite modern. You know, you've got the binding, you've got the straight edges on it. Something you might see on like a certain brand that begins with G, who might send a lawsuit if they see that. But you combine that with you know, sort of slightly more modern things. So this one's a neck through, because really it's the best way of building a guitar. We've got a 3-piece maple quarter sawn neck with black pinstripes. Just looks classy. And then we got white limber wings, which is sort of similar to Carina. Super resonant, not too heavy, and you've got a great balance. So when you use maple is very, because it's very dense, very good at accentuating the bass strings, so the resonance of the bass strings, and then the limber, because it's much softer and lighter, gives like extra sustain to the thinner treble strings. So you've got a good balance there.
Oh, cool.
And then classic ebony board, because like, why wouldn't you have a board that's completely black? Just looks
I know, right?
Timeless. Perfect for that TRIVAX logo to pop out in your face. And then hardware, we've gone for a bare knuckle war pig on it, because you know, we got one of the undeniable musical companies that comes from these shores. Bare knuckle are fantastic, and you know, there's loads of other great small builders of pickups, but as far as the big ones go, you can't. I mean,
yeah, the pickups on this thing are a fucking monster. I mean, I can demonstrate it now. I've actually got it plugged in so people can hear it for themselves. So.
It's just like a naturally loud guitar.
Yeah, man, it's fucking killer.
Just a Granger ferrule block to add to the resonance of it. We've got a Hipshot USA bridge and shallow mini tuners on it. So we've got lightweight tuners. So not to like, I notice when you play, because you swing your guitar around like a weapon, you don't want that headstock to be too heavy. So
yeah, exactly.
A balance where you can sit and stand in almost like the classical position with it. V is the perfect instrument for that purpose. And it's
super light as well. That's one thing that people gotta keep in mind, is this thing you can literally I don't know. I've never weighed it, but I don't imagine this is more than like, I don't know, 3 or 4 kilos, maybe, even if
Yeah,
that.
it's on the lighter end. Yeah.
Yeah.
But, it's personal preference. There's a lot of people who love really heavy instruments, but I don't know if you're being as active as say like you are on stage, you don't want a guitar that weighs like 10 kilo, like a Les Paul type thing hanging around your neck.
Yeah.
It's.
I mean, I do enjoy some of those kind of like the classical Les Pauls. Obviously, they're heavy as fuck, but I like to be able to move around what I've got, and that's one issue I had a lot with my original Ibanez Destroyer, because I actually had one of those, and they've been discontinued a long time ago. So that guitar is probably worth something now, even though the bridge is all fucked up. Because that's a guitar I actually bought originally in Iran. I bought it not too long before I moved here, actually. And it's a beautiful guitar, plays really well, but it literally feels like hanging a bunch of fucking bricks off of you with like a tie every time you're playing it on stage, and it's it kind of like weighs you down after a while, and I probably have back problems because of just how much I played that thing live. But this one, obviously my LTD Eclipse is very light, but I think this is even lighter. It's so easy to carry it, and what's good about it is that if you're traveling with it, if you only put it in like a soft case, it feels lighter than it feels as light as like basically a Tesco shopping bag to walk around with it,
That was exactly what I went for.
Yeah.
As light as a Tesco shopping bag.
Exactly that. Yeah, that's.
Was in the workshop.
Yeah. There you go, man. Well, listen, Alex, absolutely, mad respect to you for what you're doing with Abhorrent Guitars. I think this episode, is the, I think if people aren't sold on the idea by this point, I don't know how they will be. And I think you do a great job. I think it's awesome that what you're doing is independent, and the fact that it's just you in a shed creating high quality, high grade guitars made specifically just for this genre of music, not some boring blues shit, although of course I still respect that stuff. This is made for metal, and I think you're doing an excellent job. And yeah, man, and thank you for the weapon that you bestowed upon me. I appreciate it.
Thank you for letting me build it for you. And only metal is real. So that's
there you fucking go. There you fucking go. Alex, is there anywhere where folks can come and check out what you're doing with Abhorrent Guitars, or anything else you got going on?
Yeah, Instagram is the main platform I use. I'm pretty technophobic, so I try and keep it as simple as possible. But yeah, Abhorrent Guitars on Instagram. I'm on Facebook as well, and trying to do a bit of YouTube now because not really used to being in front of a camera, but it's also quite useful in this day and age to have some sort of social media presence. So yeah, no way to get used to something and throwing yourself headfirst into the fire.
There you go, and here's the first of many, perhaps.
Yes.
There we go, man. All right, well, Alex, thank you so much, man, for joining me. It was a pleasure just to have the excuse to catch up on here. And to everyone else listening to the podcast, hope you guys enjoyed our conversation, and we'll see you on the next episode of Iblis Manifestations. Cheers.